Episode of the live Q&A. I'm not joined by Mark Holthe today. I'm not joined by Alicia. This is the episode where I will host the live Q&A myself, and I will be answering your questions. So we will wait until people pile in, and then we'll dive right into questions. So I see that we have 2 viewers right now, and I know this is unexpected video. It was not scheduled, so I understand that it might take some time before people jump in. For those who are watching right now, please post in comments in the live chat where you're watching from. I see we have a message from Taneem. Hello, Taneem. We have a message from T. I'm not sure where C watching from, but just as I said, for this live Q&A, I will host it myself. I will not be joined by Mark or Alicia, so we can dive right into questions. So post them in the comments in the live chat. And so T is asking the question, let me move it just a little bit here. How can I extend my open work permit under H-1B program? Well, T, that really depends on what is your situation. Every situation is different. You might be eligible for a postgrad open work permit if, let's say, after your 3 years on H-1B, you go and study and then you apply for a postgrad work permit. You may be eligible to extend your work permit if you obtain an LMIA, but that really depends on your situation. So I would recommend that you book a consult and let me show you how to do it. All you need to do is go to our website, which is holthelaw.com, and then click on the Speak to a Lawyer button, and then you can choose a consult with Alicia, Mark, or myself. Okay, let's take a look at our questions. So we have Taneem, who's watching from Toronto. Perfect. We have people watching from Houston, Texas. FSJ, BC. I understand that's British Columbia, but I'm not really familiar with what FSJ stands for. But hello everyone. We have Ignacia watching from Chile. We have Moses from Kigali in Rwanda. We have people from South Africa, Cape Town. Awesome. Okay, let's take a look at the questions and maybe we can answer some of those. So Gurjan says that he applied for permanent residence under Canadian Experience class on July 16th and still waiting for Biometrics Letter. And Gurjan, it might take a little longer. It really depends on how busy RCC is with issuing biometric instructions letter, but it typically takes about a month. So you're just a little over a month, so just wait a couple more weeks and then you will get your biometrics instruction. Okay, we have this question from Moose. Can I travel to US after applying for my postgrad work permit on maintained status? I understand you said maintained, but it just corrected it before it been issued. That's a good question, and it really comes down to whether you have a visitor visa to return back to Canada. And I would recommend that you not travel until you have the postgrad work permit issued and until you're sure that your application is approved. Okay, let's move on. We have lots of questions on H-1B. For the open work permit for H-1B visa holders, what would you recommend as the next steps once the passport is sent to IRCC? So Suvarma, once you receive a passport request and you send the passport to IRCC, I would recommend that you, I would just wait until they return your passport back and then travel to Canada. But before you do that, make sure that you properly record all of your work experience and that you have all of the documents that show your status in US as an H-1B holder. Because when you get to the border, the officer might want to take a look at your documents. Okay, Elise is asking, is the Expert Sentry processing times is 5 months now. Let's take a look. So all you need to do, you need to go to IRCC, processing times, and this is the official website of the IRCC. Let's select permanent residence, let's see, economic immigration, and then you mentioned that is Expert Sentry, and I'm not sure if it's possibly, most likely it's the Federal Skilled Worker Program. So right now it is 5 months. So here's the answer for you. I don't know why I have 2 people on the screen. Okay, this is better. This is better. So yeah, it shows 5 months. So at least that's what we know right now. Some applications get approved faster. Some applications may take longer. Okay, let's take a look at our questions. We have Heidi from Fort St. John. Okay, I think, Taneem, this question you meant to ask, how can we renew PR? So if you had a permanent residence before and then you lost your status and now you want to renew it. So typically you would just need to go through the process from scratch again. I would recommend that you book a consult and then we can take a look at your situation and determine whether you lost your PR status or what can be done in your situation so that you don't lose it. Okay. Okay, this question is from T. What is the CRS score for CEC for IT people? So let's take a look again at the website. What we want to go to is rounds of invitations. And so first, if you're looking at IT people, I assume that you're asking about the category-based draws. So first, you must make sure that your NOC appears on this list. There are 3 pages with the lists of the NOC codes. Once you realize that you are eligible under this category-based draws, you can go to rounds of invitations page and then take a look at the previous rounds. So you may see that STEM occupations have been drawn only once and the score was 486. We anticipate that STEM will be the most frequently drawn category among all of those, along with French speakers. So if you don't know French and do not qualify under the French language proficiency category and you qualify only under STEM, it is likely that the score will drop from 486. But again, take a look. They've been drawing people under STEM category the last time on July 5th. So it's almost 2 months now that they have not been doing STEM draws. So the score might actually climb higher than 486. And then if it does, then it might take a couple of more draws before it falls below 486. But for the nearest future, it will float somewhere around this number. Okay. Ignacio is asking, I was working as a nurse for 4 years in my home country. In Canada, I worked as a user tech support 1 year. Can I apply to Expert Sentry? What should be my main occupation in the application, nurse or tech support? So Ignacio, really it comes down to, answering your question really comes down to knowing all of your details. We cannot give you a definite answer whether you can qualify under Expert Sentry and under what program. If you have 1 year of Canadian skilled work experience, which is tier 0, 1, 2, or 3, you can qualify under Canadian experience class. That's the rule of thumb. But in your specific situation, we need to know just more details. We need to know your age, we need to know your language score, we need to know whether, even if you are able to create an Expert Sentry profile, if there is a likelihood that you ever going to get an ITA. So I would recommend that you, again, book the consult. It's on our website, holthelaw.com. Here's our website. You just click speak to a lawyer and then select a lawyer who you would want to have a consult with. Now, which occupation should be your main application? Which occupation should be your main occupation? If you qualify under Federal Skilled Worker Program and you want to rely on your foreign work experience, you may use your nurse work experience as a main occupation. Similarly, if you're applying for Canadian experience class and you declare that you have 1 year of work experience as a tech support, that could be your main occupation. Main occupation is not that relevant when creating an account. What is relevant is that you have that experience, and then the system will see that you have 2 work experiences as a nurse and then a tech support, and it will award you points and qualify you for the draw. For example, if you're qualifying under, and let me take a look how they properly name it. If you qualify under healthcare occupations, let me share my screen and show you. So under healthcare occupations, you have 4 pages of nurse practitioners, so you can qualify under this category if you have this knock. Let's move on. Okay, Sam is asking how to prove sibling relationship with my sister. I have birth certificates and her German passport bearing her current and maiden name, but the title maiden name is in German. GB. Could this be a problem? So to show that you are a sibling with your sister, you need to show that you have common parents. So provide your birth certificate showing your parents and ask her to provide her birth certificate showing the same parents. Now, maiden name can be an issue if it doesn't match with your mom's maiden name, but otherwise, if you have the same matching parents, that should not be an issue. Prasanna is asking, what's the best path without IELTS? And I have no family members in Canada. I'm a postgrad from India, so higher education is also expensive. Prasanna, without knowing one of the official languages, you don't have much of a chance of immigrating to Canada. And I have to be honest, what you would want to do is start learning English or French as soon as possible so that you can pass the IELTS test. Once you have some of the official language proficiency, you can then start looking for jobs and potentially look for the employer who is willing to hire you under LMIA. And then with the LMIA, you can start gaining Canadian work experience and improve your language skills. Then with a Canadian work experience, improved language skills, you can then qualify under one of the programs, or who knows, maybe you will meet someone in Canada who will be willing to sponsor you. Tamim says that his PR will expire in 6 months. Can he travel? Yes, you can, but make sure that you come back to Canada with your permanent resident card that is valid on a date when you arrive back. Also make sure that you met the residency requirements in Canada so that you don't lose your PR status when crossing the border. Now, there's always a risk that if your permanent resident card expires, you will not be let into the country again until you obtain a permanent resident travel document. If you need help doing that, reach out to our firm for help. Otherwise, you can apply for permanent resident card renewal and ask for urgent processing, explaining your situation if your travel is urgent and cannot be postponed until you get your PR card. Heidi says, we just submitted our EAPR last week. However, I also updated some information on our Expert Sentry profile before that submission. Now the status for PR says submitted, but the Expert Sentry says update not submitted. Should we be doing something about it? I would recommend that you book a consult because we want to know how exactly you submitted the update, what was the update, where you submitted it. Did you follow the whole process all the way through? Did you actually click Save Changes and continue? I believe there are several buttons that you have to click before the change is actually transmitted. So you have to, if I'm not mistaken, the button says transmit, not submit. But we'll have to know more details before we can actually tell you what to do next. Okay. I applied for H-1B open work permits, but added my minor daughter as a work permit instead of study permit. How can I fix it and get the study permit for her? So if you have not received your H-1B yet, what you can do, you can submit a web form. Otherwise, you would need to apply for a study permit from scratch. Okay. Anna is asking, how many ITAs you think will be sent for health occupations the second half of the year? That's a good question, and let's again take a look at the previous rounds of invitations and try to predict by looking at a crystal ball. There is always no certainty as to how many invitations will be issued, but what we know for sure is that there is a shortage of health professionals in Canada. So if we take a look at previous rounds, let's try to identify a healthcare occupation. So 1, 2, so what I can see, there have been just 2 draws, okay? So 1,500 and 500, so 2,000 total. Now, if we compare that with the French, for example, we have 800, 3,800, 2,300. So I would expect that the number of health occupations would be above 1,000 invitations that they would issue for sure. It may climb up to 2,000 depending on the current market need, okay? But for sure, it won't be something low like this. And you can see the first category-based draw was health occupation. So I assume that they drawn only 500 people from the pool just because they were just testing out the system, trying to figure out if there are any problems. Okay. Why no draw happened this week? Only RCC can answer this question. Technically, if we go back to this same page, you can take a look. So August 15th, August 3rd, August 2nd, August 1st. So just in those 3 days, they drawn what's like a little over 4,000 applications. So 4,300 applications. Then they drawn another 4,300 applications. So that's just that's 8,600 applications in a month. That's a lot of applications that they will need to process. So I would expect that they would take 2 or 3 weeks break before they do another draw. So it might not be even happening next week. What we might see is that it be happening somewhere in like September 7th, probably September 9th. Let's take a look at the calendar. One moment. Let's take a look at the calendar and see what dates are Wednesdays, because that's when they normally do the draws. So yeah, September 6th, September 7th, that's what I would anticipate the next draw. Maybe it's going to be somewhere in mid-September, 13th, 14th. Okay. Okay, Nahid is asking, I am a Canadian. I have been in Bangladesh since October 2020, reverted to Muslim, and adopted his children. So I assume that's your spouse's children. Can we apply from here for a permanent residence open work permit? So Nahid, what you can do, you can sponsor your spouse for permanent residency in Canada. but you have to show proof that you intend to reside in Canada. So one way to do it is if you are in Canada and then sponsor your spouse to come to Canada. So really it comes down to your specific situation, whether you intend to reside in Canada or you not. And again, I would recommend you book the consult, but technically it is possible. Sahil is asking if we can do a video tutorial in our H-1B course for adding a spouse to an approved open work permit for an H-1B holder. Sahil, that's a wonderful solution, and wonderful idea to create this video, and I will communicate this with Mark, and we'll consider doing that. Okay, let's see. Nazneen says, how long does it take to reconsider a decision on a visitor visa? Nazneen, it's impossible to answer this question with any degree of certainty, and I will tell you why. Because reconsideration requests are not mandatory on an officer to take action upon. So you may submit a reconsideration request and the officer may not even look at it. They might scan through it, but they're not obligated to act on it. So if you have a visitor visa refusal and you've been outside of Canada, you have 60 days to challenge the decision. If those 60 days pass, you need to resubmit the application. Now, with the reconsideration request, you can submit the reconsideration request within the reasonable amount of time. So if that's a visitor visa and you've been abroad, you technically can submit within the next month or two, right? But there's no guarantee that there will be any action on your file. We had submitted previously reconsideration requests for some of the applicants. They were not for the visitor visa refusal, but it took about, and I have to be approximate, it's probably 4 to 5 weeks to act on one of those. And then it took at least 3 months for one of the reconsideration requests to be even considered by the officer. And the officer, and this is ironically, sent an email saying that he was not notified that the reconsideration request came in. So really, really case specific. There's no specific answer, and you're welcome. Okay, let's see. April, I think I've answered that question already. What does one do after receiving a notification of interest from a province? So that really depends on what province you received the notification of interest from. Typically, the notification of interest would include the further instructions. But if that's if you had an Expert Sentry profile and then you've got a notification of interest from a province, then technically you would need to prepare an application that you send to the province, and then the province whether grants you the nomination or not. So it involves preparing another application. Okay, let's see. Sam clarifies on his question. He says that they have the same maiden name, but in her passport, the title maiden name is in German. Should I translate it? Sam, everything that is not in English should be translated, but if it's a bio page in her passport and there is, how would I say it properly? If it writes something in German and right next to it, through the slash, it translates it into English, then you shouldn't worry about it. But if it is just in German, what you can do, you can write a letter of explanation explaining what that acronym means. If I'm not mistaken, that was something GEB, right? Okay. Nirvana asks, I need to submit my passport as I got a letter related to an H-1B open work permit. Can you please let me know how much time it takes to get the original passport back? It should be around 2 weeks. Daniela asks if there is a chance of a French draw in the coming days. So Daniela, the last French draw was happening on August 2nd. Before that, it was July 12th. And before that, it was July 7th. So 1 week break and then 2 week breaks. And I would anticipate that it would take at least a month. So it is possible that the next draw might be French. Isabel is asking, how important is the GSM? And I assume it's GCMS notes that you're referring to, immigration officers notes for reapplication for spouse study permit. They are crucial, and I would recommend that you request those as soon as possible after your previous refusal, because in those notes, the officer writes down exactly what was of concern to him, why he's not satisfied with something. So you can take a look at how the officer assessed your file and then really focus detailed, like you can prepare a detailed explanation that explains all of those concerns that the officer had. So I would recommend that you get those as soon as possible. Okay, my work permit expire in December. As a stock retail supervisor and a CELPIP only reading failed with CLB4, can I apply for open work permit or create a profile entry in the Expert Sentry? So if you have 1 year of Canadian work experience, you don't need to score 67 FSW points. So technically you can create a profile. Your score will be low with a low English language. Now, if you don't have 1 year of Canadian work experience, you might not even get 67 FSW points. So you need to do the calculation to see if you qualify for Federal Skilled Worker Program. Now, when you say about applying for an open work permit, you need to have you need to how would I explain it? You need to know whether you qualify for an open work permit first. We don't know just based on this information. Now, you can get a work permit if you have an LMA from an employer, or you may be eligible for a LMA exemption, and you can get an open work permit. I'm not sure exactly what your work permit is right now. Can the employer apply for an LMA for you? So that really is a situation that we can take a look at during the consult. Okay, and Nahid says, thank you, we will be living in Canada. That's perfect. So yes, technically you can. There's a little ink on my PR visa from the stamp made by the border control. Let's pull this up. Hi Igor, there's a little ink on my PR visa from stamp made by border control on the page next to the page with the visa. Is it a problem? No, it's not a problem at all. And what I understand also is that if you have PR visa, you haven't yet traveled to Canada. Once you travel to Canada, they will just cross the visa and you will be able to use it just once. So once you enter to Canada, you get your confirmation of permanent residence, and then you don't need that visa ever again. Daniela says, I received a notification of interest from New Brunswick. They send it via Expert Sentry profile and ask me to contact the province. How do I contact them since they didn't put info? Let's take a look. So, New Brunswick, NOI. Okay. And Danielle, I'll share my screen so that you don't spend time waiting here. So this is the official website of the New Brunswick Provincial Nominee Program, and you need to look for contact details on this page. So I would just recommend that you go to the official website and give them a call if you're not sure how to get in touch with them. Shakira is asking how to apply for spouse open work permit after Canada H-1B work permit approval for principal applicant. Is it through RCC portal account or RCC secure account, GCKey? Can you explain the steps? So you need to apply for a spousal open work permit, and if I'm not mistaken, that is done through RCC portal account. So this is just a renewed version of the secure account. Hello is asking, can we study in Canada while on H-1B open work permit to get extra points? So this is a good question because yes, you technically can study. There's a special public policy right now that allows you to study if you hold an open work permit. But you have to be aware because you cannot claim points for education that you obtain while working full-time. Or actually vice versa. So you cannot obtain points for work experience while you study full-time. So be careful with that. It might not be an option that allows you to get extra points. Okay. Jay is asking, can I claim my UK foreign work part-time 20 hours per week experience working in a position of accountant assistant from December, and he was on a student visa in UK? So contrary to the previous comment from Hello, for foreign work experience that you obtain while studying, you can count that towards work experience for Expert Sentry. If it happens in Canada, you cannot. Okay, let's take a look if there are any other questions. That I might have missed. Okay, I think I've covered pretty much all of the questions. There might be some questions that are not appearing in the chat, so if that's the case, I'm sorry. Anthony, I'll have to be honest, I don't have experience with an LMIAs for permanent residency yet. So I see your question, but I just cannot answer it with a great detail because I don't have experience and I don't want to give impression that I know something when I don't. Okay, let's see. Family 8. Okay. Family 8 sent a super chat. Okay, let's scan. This is the first question. Let me pull it up. My wife has 2 months of work in USA that I didn't mention on Expert Sentry profile, but after an ITA, I put that on her personal history. So with your work experience for your wife, how it works is that you don't get points for work experience from outside Canada for your spouse when you create a profile. You may claim points for work experience for your spouse if it's a Canadian work experience. And those are the CRS points. Now, when you create a profile and you receive an ITA, you have to fill out the EAPR. In EAPR, you can put work experience either in a work experience, work history section, or in personal history section. When you put it in the personal history section, you don't have to show proof of that work experience. It's just one of the activities that you just declare. Now, if you fail to disclose Canadian work experience, that's a different case. Okay. Nirvana is SAS. Can we file a study or visitor visa application for the child because they haven't filed it when filling out the H-1B application? Yes, you can. Thank you, Anna, and thank you, family. Guys, I will have to... Oh, sorry. Okay, I can't. I can't because Stanislav sent a super chat, and he's asking, question on Schedule A, is the visa refusion from some country is the same as refused admission from territory? So you just have to put yes to a check mark. Let me just pull up the Schedule A, and we'll locate Schedule A. Let me download the form. One moment. And we'll take a look at it together. Okay, I'll share my screen. Okay, so here's the form. So if you scroll down, have you been ever, and let's take a look, been refused admission or ordered to leave the country? So let me just see. Is a visa refusal from some country is the same as refused admission? Let's see if they actually separate those in the questions. Been refused status, so you would put yes here, and then you can put yes here and just explain it in this section. So if you answer yes to any of these questions above, you can just put 2 check marks and then explain that yes, I was refused visa, and I was not allowed into the country. That would how I would probably answer this question. All right, so I will wrap it up. I have another appointment coming up, and thank you so much for all of your wonderful questions. I'm sorry if I haven't answered some of your questions or provided a vague answer. This is my first time that I'm actually hosting a live Q&A myself. If you require any assistance, you can just book the consult with one of our lawyers in a firm, and we will do our best to help you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week when Mark and Alicia will do their live Q&As upon return. Thank you.